For more on this, we have former CIA acting and deputy director Michael Morell. He's also a CBS News national security contributor. Michael, thank you so much for being with us.
Great to be with you.
So based on this complaint, what do we know about this whistleblower?
So I read the complaint, and I was struck by a couple things. One is it's exceptionally well written. It looks to me like an analyst wrote it, a well-trained analyst. In terms of the precision of language, in terms of the details, in terms of how it was formatted and structured, short paragraphs, bullets, looked to me exactly like an analyst. That's one thing. Two is, it looked to me like someone who was extensively involved in policy discussions about Ukraine. That doesn't happen with analysts who sit out in McLean, Virginia. Mm-hmm. The third thing that struck me was that it was someone who understands exactly what happens in the White House with regard to these summaries of presidential phone calls. So my assessment when I look at all of that is that this was probably a CIA analyst who was on rotation to the National Security Council staff and was not in on the phone call, but when the folks came back from the phone call, this person heard all of this information and said, "This doesn't sound very good to me."
All right. Now, how important, though, is it that this person's identity remain concealed?
So I think I fear for this person. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to take too long before their identity comes out.
Really?
I would imagine the White House probably already has a pretty good understanding of who this might be. Only a handful of people come through the NSC staff like that. So it's probably going to be pretty easy to figure it out, and I'm concerned about what will happen to that person when their name comes out publicly, right?
Doesn't that person have legal protections, though?
From the government putting that information out, right? But I think it's going to leak. I think it's a matter of time before reporters figure it out, and then that person's going to be attacked, right? And from every angle, they're going to try to undermine that person.
Well,
so I'm concerned about that.
The president already attacked the whistleblower.
Yes.
Let's listen to what he said.
Sure.
The person who gave the whistleblower the information, because that's close to a spy. You know what we used to do in the old days when we were smart, right? With spies and treason. We used to handle it a little differently than we do now.
What is your reaction to that when you hear the president talking that way?
So I don't use this word very often when I'm on the air, but I'm appalled. I mean, he's basically saying that this person should be killed. That's what he's saying. And this person did exactly the right thing, right? This person saw something, heard something that they deemed to be the government acting inappropriately, and used the exact channel that had been put in place to report government wrongdoing. Could have easily gone to the media, right, mm-hmm. and leaked it that way, but chose to do it the right way. So this is a person who has integrity, and this is a person who did this exactly the way you're supposed to do it, and this is the result you get.
And yet the White House is saying that this information was secondhand, that the whistleblower did not listen in to this phone call, that most of the report is secondhand information. Is that significant to you?
I think what's interesting is the complaint. When you read the complaint, it lays out essentially four concerns on the part of the whistleblower. The first is the phone call, right? The second is the cover-up of the phone call. The third is the follow-up. So the very next day, right, policy officials take action with the Ukrainians to make happen what the president has asked. And then the fourth is what happened prior to all this with the canceling of the assistance to the Ukrainian government, right? We know now with certainty that first allegation on the part of the whistleblower is 100% right, because we have the summary of the phone conversation. So even though they heard it secondhand, they nailed the first one. And it sounds like there's enough sources here and there's enough details in the complaint to convince me that the other three are probably right as well.
So what do you make of the whistleblower's allegation that this phone call was sort of covered up by the White House, that it was placed in a secret vault that is used for highly classified information? Do you believe that that is probably accurate? And if so, is that a normal way to handle the president's phone calls with foreign leaders?
So when I read the summary of the phone call. I saw nothing in it that was classified. I saw nothing in it that was even close to classified. And so there'd be no reason to put it into a classified system. In fact, there's a separate system where you put presidential phone calls that are unclassified. And the whistleblower is claiming it wasn't put in. That's actually taken out of that system and put into a top secret system that's used for covert action, right?
Right.
For the purpose of covering it up. Now, that's going to have to be investigated. But since the whistleblower was right on the first account, I think the whistleblower has credibility on that allegation as well, but it has to be investigated.
Sure,
we don't know yet.
Sure, of course. I do want to play what Joseph Maguire said today about his justification for withholding the whistleblower's account. Let's listen.
After reviewing the complaint and the Inspector General's transmittal letter, the Office of Legal Counsel determined that the complaint's allegations do not meet the statutory requirement, definition concern, legal urgent concern, and found that I was not legally required to transmit the material to our Oversight Committee under the Whistleblower Protection Act. Office of Legal Counsel opinions are binding on all of us. In particular, the Office of Legal Counsel opinion states that the President is not a member of the intelligence community, and the communication with the foreign leader involved no intelligence operation or activity aimed at collecting or analyzing foreign intelligence. While this OLC opinion did not require transmission of the complaint to the committees, it did leave me with the discretion to forward the complaint to the committee. However, given the executive privilege issues I discussed, neither the Inspector General nor I were able to share the details of the complaint at the time.
Do you agree with Maguire's reasoning there, and do you think he handled it correctly?
This is a tough question. I know Joe. He is a patriot. He has done heroic things as a military officer. He has saved American lives with what he did as a military officer. He was put in an extremely difficult position here. I think it was right for him to go to the Justice Department and say, what should I do? What are the legal issues here? I think that was the right thing to do. I quite frankly think that the Office of Legal Counsel probably made the right call, that this did not fall under the standards of the Whistleblower Act, because the President does not work for the DNI and there were no intelligence activities here.
So you agree?
But the Office of Legal Counsel told him that you don't have to send it. It didn't tell him you can't send it, right? So the question then becomes one of executive privilege, right? Executive privilege can only be claimed by the White House. And it's unclear whether they did or not. And I think had I been put in Joe's place after the Office of Legal Counsel told me that I didn't have to send it, I would have gone to the White House and said, I still want to send it. This is significant enough for me to want to share this with Congress, because at the end of the day, this is about national security. This is about election security. This is about an American conspiring with a foreign country to interfere in our democracy. This is a counterintelligence issue. So I'm going to share it and have forced the White House to tell me not to, and then be prepared to resign if I have to. I think it's one of those moments.
Amazing. We are at that moment. Michael Morell, we thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise with us. Thank you.